You're listening to Best Forevers, a podcast for kindred spirits, a podcast that encourages you to love more on your friends and to further consider the issues that plague friendships. I'm Alysa Lucas, and today, me and my friend Crystal are going back to the future. We're going back in time. Not like the movie.
No.
Because...
friendship's in there, but not what we want to,
Think about it. Who is Michael J. Fox's character friends with? An old doctor.
Yeah.
He had no friends. We'll talk about that on a different episode.
Noted.
He literally didn't have any friends.
Right.
No, but Crystal's here with me again. Hi, Crystal.
Hello.
Crystal was here for Let Us Eat Cake or Let Your Friends Eat Cake. I don't remember what the episode title is now.
Yeah, cake was definitely there.
Yes, because we talked about, so Crystal is a history buff, and I told her the story of Marie Antoinette and her rider dies. And so Crystal and I are here today to talk about another historical friendship, maybe one that you didn't realize existed.
More technically considered modern history.
Ooh.
I'm pretty sure.
Yes, because...
It's past... I know that's digging deep for me. But...
well, it's not during Marie Antoinette time.
That's it, exactly.
It's the 1950s.
Yes.
I think that is modern history, but still history because both of them are now past, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so, I mean,
it's still,
R.I.P.
Yeah.
But we can still take a lot from their friendship or friendship moment, depending on how you look at it. And so, well, first, I have a little bit of a cold, so I was telling Crystal off mic, I sound a little like Phoebe from Friends when she got a cold and thought she sounded really sexy.
I think you still sound good.
Oh, thank you.
I don't think it's...
It's in my head.
Yeah, no, I would, it's not like, Not
yet, anyway.
Right.
But I just love that episode because Phoebe thinks that she sounds really sexy. And then when she gets better, she's like, no. And she, tries to get sick again so she can have that really sexy voice, which I guess is relevant to this episode because both the women that we're going to talk about had voices that they were known for.
Yes.
So today we are talking about the friendship of Ella Fitzgerald and Marilyn Monroe.
Mm-hmm. I know most of you probably have not heard that these two crossed. And I only found it when I'd searched.
Yeah.
I think I searched female friendships or celebrity, something like that. And this one came up, but there's not a ton on it. So we'll get to that point later.
Yeah, no, we don't have a whole lot of information on it. So one of the things is, well, Crystal, do you want to give your disclaimer and then I'll give mine?
Perfect. Yes. We'll start off with the legal jargon, if you will.
That reminds me of your last episode when I apologized to all the people of France.
Right. We are so sorry, a country.
Because I can't pronounce Jack, even though you're my people.
Right. That one was tough.
I had a rough time pronouncing.
Yeah.
As I usually do.
Right? Okay, so my disclaimer is I am an amateur historian. And this is my side project. So researching Ella would take a great deal of time, mainly because I didn't see a lot of books written about her.
Which seems like a travesty.
I would think so, too. And... she doesn't have a lot of voice outside of her music. She didn't do...
speaking and things like that, or interviews.
No, she actually... The book that I'm going to talk about, the author went to request an interview with Ella, and she declined.
Oh, interesting.
So, as a historian, you want kind of that firsthand account.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, through... researching her, a lot of it would have to be through other people, other celebrities or other...
It's passed down, this friend said that to this friend, said that to this person, and now we have this book.
Right. And then you have to look at the fact that if this person said X, what is their perception? Yeah. So as a historian, that can get pretty darn difficult.
Yeah, the interpretation of what people saw. And, and I think I have sort of the same disclaimer. There's a lot of information about Marilyn Monroe.
Yeah.
But I just bought a biography of Marilyn Monroe with my Christmas Barnes & Noble gift card.
Yeah. Thanks, friends and family.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Aunt Sue. And so There was an index. It's a really thick book, which means it's probably going to take me 7 years to read it, but it's fine.
Yeah, I'm not a fast reader.
I'm not a fast biography reader. I'm more of a mystery suspense kind of gal. But so in there was an index because it's so thick. And I looked up Ella Fitzgerald, and she was only on one page, and it was like in passing. Yep. And so I guess the disclaimer here, from my point of view, is that there's a lot of information about Marilyn Monroe. There's a lot more interviews that she gave that we all saw her in a particular way. She had a lot of difficulties growing up and difficulties at the end of life because she passed away when she was 36. And so I think, though, whether or not this event or their friendship is real or not, there's something I think that we can pull from it. That there's enough information that something happened. Yeah. We don't know all the details. So in this sense that we can take this sort of moment in history and think about what it was and what it means to us now.
And we probably could look at the fact that we know the exchange, the connection between the two happened. Exactly. And we know the things happened after. Yes. So we can probably, smart degrees sitting here talking, could assume that some of this probably was a byproduct of their connection and friendship of some sort. So even though we may not have it documented, cited, like
as many sources as possible. Yeah.
Something happened.
Something happened, and we're going to talk about it. Yeah. So the way that we set this up is that Crystal is going to talk about Ella, and I'm going to talk about Marilyn, and then we're going to talk about what may or may not have happened. Right? Something happened.
Something happened.
Something happened. That might be the name of this episode. Something happened.
I love it. I love it.
And then we're going to talk about what it sort of means for friendship now. So why don't you take it away with Ella?
Well, I'm going to start Ella's story by kind of putting the world into the context that it was in terms of what today is. So thinking about artists of today, they still have to be discovered, but the avenues in which they can do that is way vast. Yeah. When you think about social media, TV, TV, there's different channels, radio. I mean, you got XM radio, you got podcasts, or all sorts of ways for artists to get recognized. You also have, of course, performances. But during Ella's time, performances were key. Yeah. So you have to remember or kind of think that her drive and determination to become famous, if you will, was probably a lot harder.
Yeah, so it's not that Usher discovered Justin Bieber on YouTube when he was like 7. Yes. No, I don't know how old he was. Right. But that's essentially what happened for Justin Bieber. Right. That's not the case for Ella Fitzgerald.
Right. Or you have some people that kind of got famous in one way and then went into music or something else. So it wasn't like that. And then you also have to think about artists like Ella not only had to kind of fight to be discovered, because again, they didn't have a lot of venues to do so, but being a woman of color probably didn't help the cause either. Yeah. So that's kind of, I want people to kind of mull that over as we talk about the first lady of jazz. Yes. Ella Fitzgerald. So Ella received quite a bit of acknowledgments, if you're not familiar. Numerous Grammy Awards, Kennedy Center Award, National Members of Art. She was presented to by the President of the United States. Honorary doctorates, which I would love. Yeah. Not going to happen, but from Yale, Dartmouth, University of Maryland for music. Wow. So she had performed with Louis Armstrong, Duke Ellington, Frank Sinatra, Nat King Cole. So that's just a kind of a glimpse, and that's actually from her biography, which is Ella Fitzgerald, a biography of the first woman of jazz. So Ella, though, was born in April 1917 with meager upbringings. Her dad or her stepdad actually dug ditches. Her mom laundered clothing and did some catering. And Ella actually contributed to the family as well. She actually ran like gambling money.
That sounds amazing.
Right? So she was a little entrepreneur right there.
I guess so.
And then she did have a younger sister. So one of the things about her upbringing was that you could probably find Ella doing tomboyish type things. She, in my perception of what I was reading, she was very like athletic.
Oh wow.
She liked dancing. And you would also probably see her at the Apollo Theater, which will come up again.
Yes.
Watching all the performances there. Okay. So kind of hitting one of the big things with Ella's history is in 1932, her mother, stepdad, and sister all passed away.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. So she was...
From different things or all at once?
Nope, from different things. Kind of mom, stepdad, daughter, or sister. Sister.
Yeah.
So she ended up living with her aunt.
Wow.
Yeah. So in that time, she skipped school, which you can imagine. I mean, losing your whole family.
Yeah.
School's not going to be a priority for you.
No.
So she... right? Skipped school. She got in trouble with the law. Not much on what happened. So again, I think digging into the biography would be interesting to see.
Yeah.
But she ended up having to go to this reform school. And at the reform school, the website, actually EllaFitzgerald.com, basically said that she was abused by her caretakers there.
Yeah.
And I would think it was very interesting that the website said that she escaped, which... I would think there's more to that story.
Yes.
Of, you escaped.
What does that mean? Was there like an elaborate plan? Did she like Home Alone it?
Right.
Like, what was she doing?
Lock them? I don't know. At that time, who knows? So she did escape the reform school.
Wow.
And this is something to, I think, bring up because tragedy was something that Marilyn experienced as well. Yeah. But also, this is really the heart of Ella's songwriting.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
She pulled a lot from that time. She actually says, kind of like quoted in the website about her that she's grateful because she had that experience. So when success came, she was much more appreciative of what she had. So she just knew how to live without. And when she had it,
she could appreciate it.
Yeah. So the other thing that happened after the reform school, which hit a lot of people, was the Great Depression.
Oh, God.
So not only...
Jeez Louise.
Right?
What else can happen?
I know, right?
Yeah.
You're reading it and you're thinking, where's the happy? Where is that coming?
Doesn't come for
quite a bit, yeah. So, being single, being, again, a woman of color in the Depression, you can only imagine it was probably worse.
Yeah. She had a lot more difficulties than other people probably did.
Yes, and for a time that was difficult for a large majority of people. But yes, that was not great. So in 1934, though, so not too far after, was her break. Yeah. So again, we talked about how she was always kind of around the Apollo Theater, and she won the chance to be on their amateur night.
Oh.
So her whole plan was she was going to dance.
Oh.
Right? She was like, I'm going to dance. This is going to be great. Again, which leads me to believe she was probably very athletic is the word I use. But what happened that night, though, is a popular dance trio went before her.
Okay.
So quick thinking Ella was like, I better not dance because I can't compete with them.
Yeah.
So I'm going to sing.
Yeah.
And she was actually kind of booed when she got on stage. People were actually quoted to say, what are you doing up there? Until she started to sing.
Yeah.
And I don't know the song, but it was very popular at the time. And when she was done, they were asking for an encore. So you kind of knew something happened. And what I really like about this time for her was this was the moment that she realized who she was. Yeah. Outside of the stage, she was not very confident, very shy, which probably you could allude to the fact that there's not much of her interviews.
Voice otherwise, as you said.
Right,
Yeah.
It's not really out there. But on stage, forget it.
Forget about it.
And she loved it.
Yeah.
So that was probably I would say her big break, and I think started more for her her relationship with herself and with probably performing.
Yeah.
From there. So the next things, she exchanged a lot of hands with kind of like management. So I'm not going to go down that trail, but that's where I think we probably would find a lot of interesting things about Ella if we were to look at her kind of history. But again, performances were huge for artists at this time. So she did a lot of talent shows.
Jeez.
Can you only imagine?
It's like, I mean, even talent shows now are like The Voice. It's like, could you imagine?
Right.
A 4-chair turn for Ella Fitzgerald? I'm thinking.
Yeah, right. At least.
At least, yeah.
So she's like talent shows. Probably I would imagine any sort of gig, quote unquote, you could get.
Yeah.
But they kind of allude to that specifically. And then she got her, and I shouldn't say other big break, but another opportunity when she had a week-long stretch at the Harlem Opera House.
Ooh.
And that's when she actually joined Chick Webb's band. So they kind of took her, and that's where, through the band, she was way more kind of thrown around the country.
Gotcha. So more touring type stuff.
Yes. Yeah. She ended up meeting her husband, Ray Brown, who was a musician, but it was really the connection that her husband made with Norman Gans. Gans it was a producer, and he was an advocate for his performers because of the civil rights movement. So he was very much connected with that, very much in the cause. There's a really kind of funny story about them getting escorted away from a venue. And then the police were like, hey, by the way, can we get your autograph?
Yeah. Well, it almost seems like they probably had a lot of difficulties with how people viewed race. And so that made it more difficult for them to just be where they were and to do what they were doing. And then it was like, oh, well, I've given you trouble, but you're still Ella Fitzgerald, and you're kind of good, so let me get your autograph, too. It's almost a sign of, like, disrespect. Like, why put her through all that just to be like, oh, can I get your autograph, too? Like, I think that they probably had a lot of difficulties, and I wonder just if we weren't there, but, like, going through the civil rights movement at that time, or if she was white, how things would have been different for her. Yeah. But then again, I feel like there's lots of difficulties that people are experiencing now,
Oh, sure. Yeah, and I think probably one thing, and we didn't really mention it before, but to think about the Apollo, the Harlem Opera House, is entertainment was segregated.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, again, you could go to any channel on TV or anything and see a vast variety. And I'm not saying it's great now. I'm not saying
there's a lot more representation, but there's still more that can be done in media in terms of representation.
Right. And I also think there's probably at that time very conflicting feelings for the people who wanted her autograph. You kind of imagine maybe some people's hands were tied in what they could do, even though she was very talented.
Yeah.
So it's a very convoluted way.
And it just seems like unnecessary. It's like she is a wonderful singer, and just let her do her thing.
Right.
Right. Why so people gotta make things so hard?
Right. Oh my gosh.
Just because people are different.
Yeah.
We're all the same, really. I mean, I can't sing, but I can dance, though. I could have been her backup dancer.
I think...
No.
I couldn't. No, I couldn't. No. But that, I think, is interesting, too, to consider that if you were to hear her...
Yeah.
And there is a lot. There's albums and all sorts of things. So, we might want to link out to a couple of those.
Of course. In my show notes, I'll do so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you were just to hear her voice, I think... it's not like you would automatically think of a specific type of person.
Yeah.
And that's the thing with music. And I think to the detriment of Ella is that performance was their main way to get the word out.
Yeah.
And so
it's a way to communicate. It's a way to get your feelings out. It's a way to heal. I mean, music is so powerful.
Right. And I think because you had to put yourself on stage, you can't hide from, this is who I am. And this is, so I think there has to be through the band or the producers or things, a lot of other, insight into her time as a starting up performer. By the way, I use artist, performer, singer, all interchangeably. I'm sure someone will correct me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I do think there is that people probably do use those words interchangeably, and like someone who is a singer, maybe like Michael Bublé, versus like a performer is someone, I'm trying to like
Pink.
Yeah. Well, I think she can sing too. Okay, see, that's where it gets difficult.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Like Britney Spears is a performer.
Right.
She's not the best singer, but her show, you're going to be like, I am so entertained. Exactly. Whereas when you go to see Michael Bublé, it's like Adele, it's all about her voice.
Right.
And she could just stand in one spot and you're still going to get all of her voice. But like Britney Spears, you're like, fire, smoke,
dancers,
lights, 17 different outfit changes.
Right.
Woo! Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think there is maybe like a very minute difference, but then at the same time, I think we use them interchangeably. Yeah.
It's funny you brought up Adele, because Adele is who I had in the back of my mind researching Ella.
Yeah.
Because Adele didn't go out to be a singer. She was a songwriter. And then they kind of were like, hey.
She's a great songwriter.
Yeah.
And singer. Goddamn, she's a good singer.
Yeah. But she was like terrified of the stage.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's elements of that, but I think I just kept thinking about Ella and how, like, she's so shy, but she got on stage and,
And I think that's something that's actually pretty common, is that it's like people maybe who are shy and introverted, which I think are different things, but or people who have anxiety about performance, that they can create this character or persona, and then when they're in that, there's nothing wrong. But when they have to be themselves in front of other people, there's some level of difficulty. And that was the case, I think, also for Marilyn Monroe. So shall we talk a little bit about her?
Yes.
Do you have anything else for Ella?
No, actually, I went right to my thing, connect with Marilyn. See?
Okay. Oh my gosh. It's like, and we have different sets of notes.
We
don't, I'm making a gesture at her like we're in sync.
It's the history side of us.
It's the history side of us. Well, I know a segue when I hear one.
Right.
I took 2 years of radio and TV in high school.
There it is. There it is.
Which I think is pretty much called broadcasting now, but that's fine.
And I've only been complimented about my voice when I did an over the intercom closing of a facility once. Yeah, it was a BCA faculty who was like, you have a great voice. You should be. And I was like,
the building will close in 10 minutes. Oh, dear God, that voice. Yeah. Someone find her so we can get more announcements.
Yeah, and I was like, and I'm a junior at this point. I'm like, no, I'm knee deep in education. Like, I'm not going away.
You're like, I don't need to add all this in.
Anyways.
But I think that the segue that I heard was like this performance anxiety, and I think that Marilyn Monroe had a lot of that too. I think that she felt like she wasn't good enough, and she was concerned about whether or not she was a good actress and that she could sing and so on and so forth. And so I think that she had pre-performance anxiety that might be similar to how Ella felt. So there's some similarities there. But as we know, Marilyn Monroe is one of the most iconic pop culture symbols of all time, up there with Elvis Presley and Mickey Mouse.
Yep.
And I think, like, will that ever change? I don't know. I think she will always be just so iconic. Just, I mean, because I was even reading, like, how many people sort of, like, were inspired by, Material Girl by Madonna is essentially The Gentleman Prefers Blonde with Marilyn Monroe.
Yep.
That so many other people, even Lady Gaga and others have done where they look like Marilyn Monroe, So I think that even in music that she's iconic, and that we will continue to see different forms of her, or sort of like shout outs to her for a very long time. And I think in some ways it's really deserved because in her short life, she was only 36 when she passed, that she might have deserved a little bit more.
Yeah.
So biography.com described her as the world's biggest and most enduring sex symbol. Marilyn Monroe was born as Norma Jean in June 1st, 1926, and she grew up in Los Angeles with a troubling childhood. Mm-hmm. So that's another commonality that her and Ella had. Mm-hmm. This included not knowing her father. Her mother experienced mental health issues, and that was something that she had to cope with her entire life. Mm-hmm. And her mom ended up living several decades longer than her, still with mental health issues. Her childhood was further troubled because her mom couldn't take care of her. She was often in foster homes, and she was sexually abused and assaulted. And so she actually married her first husband when she was a teenager so that she could avoid any further time in foster homes. Oh. And in her life, she had 3 husbands. Jim Daugherty, if I'm saying his last name correctly, was the first one. Mm-hmm. She also married baseball player Joe DiMaggio, and then a couple years later, playwright Arthur Miller. Mm-hmm. And so those were the 3 people that she was married to in her life. She became a pinup model and broke into Hollywood with her first movie contract in 1946. Mm-hmm. This is when she transitioned from Norma Jean to Marilyn Monroe and became the blonde bombshell as she'll always be remembered. Yeah. And in a lot of ways, if you see Norma Jean and you see pictures of her as Marilyn Monroe, there is a stark difference. Like there is something innocent and sweet, and I don't know how to describe it, but she had brown hair.
It almost looked like she was the name escapes me, but the little girl that played Wizard of Oz.
Oh, Judy Garland.
Yes.
There is a lot of look to that. Yeah, for sure.
Because I remember seeing an early picture of Marilyn Monroe, but not when she took on that persona. Yeah. And I was like, wow. Mm-hmm. This does not look like, but she's in the image I keep thinking of. She's got like this blue and white. Mm-hmm. Like plaid.
Yeah, I know. I know what you're talking about.
And I'm like, does not look like.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And then it's like I think she started being a pinup with the brown hair, but when she got the contract. And so you could start to see her hair change a little bit, and then became sort of the wavy blonde, curvy woman that we know.
Mm-hmm. Pinups were huge.
Yes. There's a certain cultural aspect to it that I'm not sure how many people know about, but that was really popular in the 40s for sure. Yeah. As far as I could see it, Marilyn's popularity grew tremendously in the 1950s with All About Eve, Niagara, Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, and Some Like It Hot. And her movies grossed over $200 million.
Wow.
But what I sort of gathered from my research was that she didn't get paid a lot, and that she was paid to be sort of this ditzy blonde, which ended up, she was typecasted, of course, so she's always going to be in that persona. And then also, it's like brunettes that were in the same movie as her would get paid more, and it's almost as if, like, she was never the star, even though she would say, but in Gentleman Prefers Blondes, I'm the blonde.
Yeah.
And so
it's in the title.
It's in the title. And so to be who she was, and to be, it almost feels like she is forced to continue this image. Whereas, like, I feel like, Madonna is an icon, and Lady Gaga are icons that are, you had Madonna in the 80s, and then you have Lady Gaga in the aughts, I don't know, 2000s. Right. What do they call it now when it's 2000s? And I think one of the things that you see with them, and one of the things that is very enduring about Madonna, is that she could always change her style or her look or what she was focusing on. And I think Lady Gaga is the same. Yep. And it's almost like there was push against from Marilyn Monroe doing anything like that she was this thing that she continued to be. And then we see when she was at the president's birthday, coming out with the dress and the slinky, like mink stuff, and we were doing this off mic, but happy birthday with my sexy Phoebe voice.
I love it.
Happy birthday, Mr. President. Right.
Yeah.
And so I think what happened was she was dealing with a lot, and she ended up dying on August 5th, 1962, which was indicated to be a drug overdose and essentially a suicide, which I think I've been pretty clear both here, perhaps, and on my true crime podcast, Fatalities. And I don't think that was the case. I think there's more to the story, although considering the life she had, there's probably a lot of difficulties that she had to deal with her childhood, being sexually abused and assaulted, living in foster homes, not knowing who her father was, dealing with her mother who probably had undiagnosed and diagnosed mental health issues, and then feeling like she could never be anything different and then wouldn't ever get... And the thing is, like, I think she got credit. She was a very powerful person, but she didn't get paid for the power that she had, the impact that she had. And I know that, like, her husband, Joe DiMaggio, wasn't happy with her being a sex symbol. Like, I think that they got in a fight the day she filmed that scene over the street. What do you call it? Where her dress blows up. But I can't think of what the technical term is for
it's a subway grate.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I don't know if that's the technical.
Of the coming up.
The street.
With the street with the steam and the dress went up, and it's all very technical.
Yes.
But at the same time, it's like, it's almost like in a lot of ways she was exploited. Yeah. And Ella figured out who she was when she broke through and began to sing, and it almost is like Marilyn Monroe died without knowing who she really was or who she truly embraced. Yeah. They said that before she died, she only owned a house 6 months before she had died and had very few possessions. And so if you actually see pictures of the home that they have from, like, I want to say crime scene, but I know people argue with me because since it was noted to be a drug overdose, suicide, whatever. I mean, since I was a small kid, I've loved Marilyn Monroe. And I don't believe that if women want to be sex symbols, do it. If you don't, do it. Whatever you want to do, women should be able to be whatever they want to be. And I am no way like Marilyn Monroe at all. Right? In that sense of that persona. And that's what it is, though. I think that was a lot of a persona and not necessarily who she was. But from a young age, I just felt like she was so captivating, though. Yeah. She was so, like, you just couldn't help but be drawn to her and to be just mesmerized by her. And then, of course, I watched, like, a hard copy that was like, Marilyn Monroe... There's all these theories about, like, the Kennedys had something to do with it and this, that, and the other thing. But I will have you know that there were 2 ambulances called to her house that night. And, but why? At different times. When did she actually die? Okay, we'll do that on Fatalities. But
now, have you ever watched her movies?
Yes, I have them.
See, and that's where I recently, probably in the last, like, 5 years, watched, I can't remember the title. But that's where I kind of, if you want to say, like, fell in love with her because she's funny.
Yeah, Some Like It Hot is hilarious.
I think that's the one I watched.
It's hilarious.
And you're like, what if she would have, like, lived longer, you know? But I was the same way, like, the blonde kind of, you wanted to not necessarily, like, be like her, but it's kind of like when you meet someone, you're like, I think you should be in our friend group. You know what I mean?
We should Marilyn, be besties.
Yeah, like, you just seem like we would click. And maybe that was the portrayal of, you know, kind of everybody's going to like me. Yeah. You know?
It's like the thing from the movie Heathers from 1989, which they say this in more of, like, a inappropriate way, but the main Heather, because there's 3 Heathers in this movie, and then a Veronica is the friendship group, and she's like the Regina George of the high school in the 80s, and she's blonde and she's pretty and she's powerful, but she's mean. And I don't think Marilyn Monroe was mean, but she was pretty and she was popular and that sort of thing. And one of the things that Heather says is that they either want to be with me or they want to be me. And I think that goes for both men and women. Like, be with her like as a partner, be with
Right.
her as a friend, be like her, look like her. I know that I would never look like her. I mean, I can't imagine myself as a blonde, first off.
I don't know. I always love hair colors, so I can't.
Well, I do too, but I have never gone blonde. I have blonde highlights. Maybe next time I go in, I'll be like,
Just to see.
Let's do this for Marilyn.
Right. Maybe that's what you know. What we should do after we record this, we should go on one of those sites and change our hair color and post it. Be like, this is our Marilyn image,
and then everyone's gonna be like, and we're totally gonna stop listening to Best Forevers, or now we know why she's a podcaster, not on television.
Oh my gosh. But talking about her physical attributes, I remember one of the reasons why I liked her when I was younger was because very early in high school, someone shared that her dimensions. She would be overweight now. Yeah. And I laughed at that because you're like, it's Marilyn Monroe.
She's so sexy
and like pretty. And they're like, oh no, we would have like, done a facelift. We would have done this. And then right. And you're like, well, you would mess with that? Would you mess with a Picasso painting? No.
Yeah.
But
the thing about it is they kind of did because she was beautiful as Norma Jean. And,
True.
But there is, but again, it's like an iconic look, like that pink dress from Gentlemen Prefer Blondes with her hair and that sort of thing. It is so iconic. And so, but the thing about it is maybe it should have been for that movie. And that's the thing is with actresses, you would assume that they would be able to move into their different roles. But I also think that's a sign of the time for movies and how they viewed actresses perhaps is that, well, this is selling, so stick with that versus now where it's like, you don't even recognize actresses in their roles because they become the character and there's better roles for women where, most roles are written by men, or there's not very many roles written at all, or you're either young and hot or old and grandma. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so I think there's more of that representation now. And so I think that's some of it. But I also think a lot of that caused her pre-performance anxiety to be more problematic, that she would often be tardy to different movie sets and things like that she would get called off movies and things like that. And it came down to the anxiety, which I don't think she ever got a handle on. And I think that leads back into Ella, which leads into their friendship, is that a music or a voice coach told her to listen to Ella Fitzgerald. So she would listen to Ella Fitzgerald to sort of practice singing and to hear singing and to improve her own singing. And so I think the first thing is that she listened to Ella Fitzgerald as a recommendation to better herself. Yeah. And so she became familiar with Ella Fitzgerald. And
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So then I have two sort of descriptions of their friendship that are both pretty short because, again, something happened. Did you have any descriptions of their friendship?
I have just the
that something happened.
That something happens. I was going to say encounter. I just had a couple of those.
Okay.
But no, I actually didn't go into. I searched in the biography that I mentioned. Marilyn Monroe. And about 4 or 5 things came up, again, about something happened.
Yeah.
But nothing.
I actually wonder, is that because friendship is already neglected, that when people are writing biographies about these wonderful women that just had such an impact on our culture, that friendship wasn't seen as important, and therefore maybe it wasn't included. So we know something happened, but we don't spend a lot of time. Like, we're going to spend more time about the fact that Ella Fitzgerald was single.
Right.
Or that she looked this way, or that she met her husband here, or that Marilyn Monroe looked this way and she was married 3 times. But how much time do we spend in biographies talking about friendships unless the friend is the one that brought someone down?
Right.
You know what I mean?
And it's interesting because even the website, I'm pretty sure it's the website that I had for Ella, just said that she had a lot of celebrity encounters or something like that.
Probably because they all came to see her sing. But then it's but was that it? Right. Yeah. Right.
So it's no, that's a good point, because if you think to me, when you think about friendship, and when I was thinking about this story, is how friendship is vital to a lot of things.
Yeah. There's so many benefits.
Yeah. And then I was thinking, why wouldn't something like this be more prominent? And I went back to more of the time.
Yeah.
The time period, I should say, than...
We have a woman of color and a white woman.
Right. That's where I kind of went with this. But that's a good point, because even other biographies I read, unless they were significant in some way in their...
Yeah.
Whatever.
In the timeline where it was like a battle between, like, I can imagine in telling Britney Spears' story or Christina Aguilera's story that they're both important because they both came out at the same time and were in lots of competition.
Right.
Like, things like that, I think, would be more included versus, like, here's this relationship that would not be expected and maybe accepted, right? That Marilyn Monroe would be friends with Ella Fitzgerald and vice versa.
Right.
Right? In the 1950s, when the civil rights movement and, you know, we've already talked a little bit about we talked about how they were both treated.
Yeah.
Maybe poorly, but in different ways.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
One being exploited and one not being able to maybe fulfill her full potential because she's doing talent shows instead of goddamn big arenas like she should have been. Yeah. So I have two different descriptions that are fairly similar, but I thought these would both be important to understanding that something happened.
Yeah.
So the first one is from a webpage, and the author's name is Kevin Neatstead, if I pronounce that correctly. In his webpage, it says, during the 50s, one of the most popular venues was Mocambo in Hollywood. Frank Sinatra made his Los Angeles debut at this place in 1943, and it was frequented by Clark Gable, Charlie Chaplin, Humphrey Bogart, Lauren Bacall, Lana Turner.
Everybody.
Well, who was more?
Well, good point.
Sorry. No. Fitzgerald was not allowed to play at Mocambo because of her race.
Yeah.
Then one of her biggest fans made a telephone call that quite possibly changed the path of her career for good. Here she tells the story of how Marilyn Monroe changed her life. And now this is a quote from Ella Fitzgerald. Quote, I owe Marilyn Monroe a real debt. She personally called the owner of Mocambo and told him she wanted me booked immediately. And if he would do it, she would take a front table every night. She told him, and if it was true, due to Marilyn's superstar status, that the press would go wild. The owner said yes, and Marilyn was there front table every night. The press went overboard, although we apparently can't find him.
Yeah.
Maybe it's in images.
Yeah.
After that, I never had to play a small jazz club again. She was an unusual woman, a little ahead of her times, and she didn't know it.
Yeah.
End quote. And so
I love that.
I do, and I think like it's like she was so powerful, Marilyn Monroe was, and it's almost like she didn't realize it, that she died without knowing maybe how much influence that she had.
Right.
But yeah, so she made that call, and that changed Ella Fitzgerald's career. Yeah. So on biography.com, I actually found an entry for their friendship.
Oh, good.
And so here we go. By the 1950s, Fitzgerald's enthralling singing voice had won her fans across the country. But the venues that hired her were often smaller clubs. Some places weren't interested in having an overweight black woman. So now we're bringing in weight. Yeah.
Oh, I got a picture.
Is pissed.
Yeah. She's gorgeous.
Yeah.
If you have not seen it, I mean, every picture I have seen of Ella.
Yeah.
She's
both
beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, get out of here with that bullshit. Yep. Okay. So black women perform for, so they weren't interested in having overweight black women perform for them, no matter her talent. Yeah. Fitzgerald reportedly once told her press agent, quote, I know I make a lot of money at the jazz clubs I play, but I sure wish I could play at one of those fancy places, end quote. Movie star Monroe had spent hours listening to Fitzgerald recordings. In November 1954, she got to see Fitzgerald perform in Los Angeles. The two were soon friends. Something happened.
Yes.
So when Monroe learned of Fitzgerald's inability to get a gig at Mocambo, a famous LA nightclub, she decided to help. Dorothy Dandridge and Eartha Kitt had already performed at Mocambo, so Fitzgerald wouldn't have even been the first African-American to sing there.
Right.
But the club owners felt the heavy set Jesus Christ.
It hits just hits you.
Body shaming. Love it. Felt the heavyset Fitzgerald lacked the glamour to draw crowds. So Monroe approached him with a proposition. If he booked Fitzgerald, she promised to sit at the front of the house every night and bring along other celebrities. Monroe made clear that the amount of publicity this would garner. She made it clear the amount of publicity this would garner, so the club owner agreed to hire Fitzgerald for a couple of weeks in March 1955. During Fitzgerald's run, Monroe kept her word to sit up front, and Frank Sinatra and Judy Garland showed up on opening night. However, such a celebrity firepower wasn't that necessary. Fitzgerald's shows sold out, and the owner added a week to her contract. This successful engagement changed Fitzgerald's career trajectory. She later told Miss Magazine, after that, I never had to play a small jazz club again, end quote. So you can see those are two different accounts, but they're almost identical. And maybe they come from the same source. But again, something happened. That there was obviously, not only do we have issues perhaps with women and then their race, but then also their body type. And so there was a lot of different obstacles in the way of her performing. But so it sounds like Marilyn Monroe really sort of loved Ella Fitzgerald. And through seeing her and hearing her sing, that they became friends in that sense, and that when she heard that she couldn't get that gig, she was like, nope, that's not going to happen. And so I think that is really powerful, and I think that the story is amazing. Perhaps they weren't more than friends who just saw each other in passing in the industry. But to me, it's an amazing tale of female empowerment, especially during civil rights and when liberal feminism wasn't quite yet on the move. It started in the mid-1900s, but liberal feminism specifically wasn't until like the 60s or 1963 when Betty Friedan released The Feminine Mystique, and at that point, Marilyn Monroe had passed. So, I think that not only does this show like female empowerment, I also think it shows in a lot of ways that Monroe could have been a pretty powerful intersectional feminist. And showing maybe what it's like to be an ally. But to me, I think this moment is important because I think it reminds us that it's really important for women to support women.
In times now, right, where you, first off, celebrity status, I just recently binge watched a season of Real Housewives of Insert County.
I watched all of them.
Right.
Yeah, totally.
But, you have these people, they're fighting against each other. I'm flipping tables because you said X, Y, or Z or whatever. We have to almost fight the counter of that. Like, no, I want to support you. And so to hear that something like this happened in the 1950s. You're like,
Ella was right. Marilyn was ahead of her time. And I think that's amazing. And I think that Ella would have probably done the same for her if she would have been able to have the ability to do so. I think in this situation, given the time and the context, that Marilyn Monroe had a little bit more of the accessibility and the acceptance to be able to do what she did. I think you're exactly right. It's that there's constantly what we see in the media is women tearing down other women. And I think it's not necessarily something that is the case. I feel like we see it, and so we assume that that's what all female friendships are. And there are probably a lot of female friendships where people are in competition and tearing themselves down. Now, you've been binging The Real Housewives or whatever. Well, I've spent the week watching Gossip Girl and talk about the lead characters, Serena and Blair, who are supposed to be best friends, and all the things they do to each other to win or to be on top or to whatever the case is. It's just like, I mean, it's good television, but it's like, why would you treat your friends like that?
Well, and even look at the industry. How many feuds do you see between artists? And women, Cardi B, whatever. I can't remember the people.
Cardi B.
And who's she?
Nicki Minaj.
Yeah. I like them both.
You don't even know which feud is going on.
No, you don't. But you hear about it, and you're like, wow, if you took that away, if you took that, I'm going to compete or be negative to you or whatnot, and you took the opportunity to be like, let me help you this way, and you help me this way,
They would rule the world.
Powerhouse. Right there, yeah.
Imagine that duo single coming out and dropping it like it's hot.
Right.
Like, and I feel like that's more common, like, than to see, you know, it's like cat fights and things like that. And that it's not saying that we haven't seen feuds between men, because one that I have on my mind, because I'm doing research on it for fatalities, is Tupac and Biggie Smalls, like the East Coast versus West Coast, right?
Yep.
But it's almost like that's about pride, you know, and you have to defend your pride, versus for women, it's like, well, they're just raised to be catty and you can't trust them and this, that, and other thing. And I'm like, but that's not always the case. If we believe that is true, then how can we accomplish anything? And so one of the things that I think about is that Crystal and our friends Sarah and Ashley, they helped me move into the place that I'm in now. And so I got them all mugs from Golden Girls that said, thank you for being a friend. Yeah. And so they each took a picture. And so I created one image with each of us in a box holding the mug. Yeah. And I posted it on Instagram for Best Forevers. And then one morning I was scrolling through and I was like, why is that that's my picture, right? And that picture that I had posted was on someone else's Instagram, and it was a male podcaster, and he was saying something along the lines of like, this is how women act before they tear each other down. And I was like, first off, I know you didn't just take my photo and then use it as your own. Like, find something else on Google Images, because he follows me, and so you know he saw it and then screen grabbed my picture and then used it. And I was like, seriously? Yeah. And I messaged him immediately and I was like, where did you get this? Did you get this from my Instagram? He was like, yeah. And I said, well, I don't appreciate it because my podcast is about friendship and celebrating it and working through the issues. And so I am not on board in believing that women are always about tearing each other down. Yeah. And I really appreciate it if you took it down. And he told me I couldn't take a joke. And I was like, you know, I think I'm pretty funny. Yeah. And that I like a wide range of humor, including inappropriate humor. But that to me was like, no, that's not cool. No. And no. And so then I just never engaged with him. But that's the thing. I think that people believe that there is like inherently something wrong with women. And, you know, I read some articles that say we raise people to not believe women, not to trust women, and that women are catty. Yeah. And I think that can be the case, but I also think if that's what we socialize girls and women to believe, and we see it in the media, then they are enacting a role that they believe they should participate in.
Accurate.
That is accurate.
Right.
And so I think it's not necessarily that the media represents reality, that the reality becomes media in some ways. And so I'm not saying that there aren't examples of people in life. Yeah. Like, and maybe that's just like a toxic friendship and you shouldn't be. But then there's this like contributing idea that women are supposed to be sugar and spice and everything nice. And so then conflict becomes passive aggressive versus them being upfront and direct. Yeah. And so I think that plays a lot of problems. So I think that's why I like this friendship so much. Yeah. Because it was just like, you know what? She is talented. Yes. I love her music. She should be heard. Yep. I'm going to do what I can to be sure that she's heard. Yep. And at that time, that could have probably resulted in backlash to Marilyn Monroe. Oh, yeah. And it was like, not even a thing. Nope. Not even a second thought. No. Not even one regret. Right. And I think that if more people are supportive of their friends, whether like things aren't going right for us right now, it doesn't mean that our friends' successes mean that we're failing, right? Absolutely. That we can't all win together. It's not like, if you're succeeding, then I have to fail. We can both succeed and we can both fail. And then we can get together and drink and cry about it.
Well, and I think about, I mean, the fact that there's many times, for example, and actually one of my close friends, we went out for the same job.
Oh, gosh, that's tough.
Right? And the cool thing was, it was like, hey, if you get it, awesome. If I get, you know, vice versa. You know, we're supporting each other. And I didn't get it. Yeah. And they did. But it brought us closer, in my opinion, because I was like, you know what? no, you take it and you run with it.
Yeah.
You do the best you for it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what we need to do is like, it wasn't my time.
Yeah.
And that's okay. But I'm not going to diminish her light because I feel shitty.
Yeah. Because you're like, I didn't get the job. Yeah.
It's like, it's okay. And that I think has really, I think we both feel we have a new alliance, a new kind of friendship because of it.
Yeah.
But how neat to just know how good was Marilyn feeling after that. Can you imagine, like, here's Ella who's like, I really wish I could be here, and knowing that Marilyn, like, I could do something for you. Yeah. And she did it, and how awesome that is. And maybe we need to highlight that more. Like, it will make you feel good.
Yeah. Why wasn't that, like, important to either one of their biographies? Like, even if that quote is accurate, Ella Fitzgerald said that she owes a great debt to Marilyn. And in both instances, the descriptions described it as critical to the transition in Ella Fitzgerald's career.
Absolutely. Yeah. Why couldn't that be something, I mean, in a book in itself of how
let's get that going now.
Shoot, if we could find stuff.
Yeah, I know.
Maybe,
if
like you
only
said,
we were alive at that time, we could do more.
But there might be some things in newspapers or something like that. But
microfiche, here we go.
Yeah, right? Scroll. A whole different version to scrolling.
Yeah.
Touche. Right? But I don't know. I just think, like, I was driving back from my doctor's appointment today and thinking about recording with you. And I'm like, how cool is that? My friend who does podcasts is like, hey, Crystal, you want to come do this?
Yeah.
And it's like, that's cool. Or how many times do we all share your podcast? It's because your voice matters. Mm-hmm. And we want that stuff to be out there. And I think that's what this is about. Like, why is it you have to be, even if the persona is catty, competition, whatever, let's outdo that. Let's say, no, I'm going to support, all sorts of, women-owned businesses or whatever it is.
Or just supporting our friends, even if it's like, one of the things I always say, well, first off, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. But second, also, that I can be like, Crystal, can you record today? Like, can you record tomorrow? And Crystal's like, sure thing, let's go. And she's always ready to go. And like, that is being like a supportive friend and being part of what my voice is. And I appreciate that you would do that. And that you came up with this idea to do a completely different way and go historical. And I think that just goes to show, like, friendship is critical and there's lots of different ways to view it and learn from it. And I think, again, like, this is an important one. But also, like, you have, and I don't know how you're a keep designer.
Yes.
That would be the correct term.
Yes.
And so I have necklaces and bracelets and that you've helped me design. And I love it because I'm sure all these people have all these, like, great sayings and bless this and strong women. And then I'm like, SSDGM. Right. Stay sexy, don't get murdered. So, like, for my favorite murder, like, Crystal helped me make an SSDGM bracelet.
Hey.
And that it's like, if I can't always afford it, it's like, but I can still share it, or I can tell people about it, or I can participate, I can watch you live show the stuff, right?
Right.
And that when there was something that came up that was friendship, you were like, hey, this thing is out. And I ended up getting this really pretty turquoise necklace that stood for friendship because you told me about it. And it might not be the case that you can listen to every one of my episodes or that I can buy a necklace every other week, but there's so much we can do. And it doesn't mean because you're doing so well at Keep that I can't do well at my podcast. Yeah. And I think maybe that what happens is that it really can be more complicated, like in the situation you talked about when you're both going up for the same job.
Yeah.
Or, for example, if it's like podcast against podcast, well, let me know if there's another friendship podcast out there. And I don't mean people who are friends who podcast together.
Right.
But a podcast that is specifically about friendships.
Right.
Right? There aren't that many.
No.
And
if there were, I could see you being like, hey,
let's get together. Yeah. Let's talk about friendship. Right. Yeah. And I just... last year I had Kayleen Schaefer on who wrote Text Me When You Get Home. And actually in February, which is this month.
Tomorrow?
Yeah. Well, that's when it comes out. So this month.
Sorry. Yeah. This month. Yes.
This month. is coming out in paperback, and like she's done so well with her book.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'd love to write a book. I have a PhD in communication and studying friendship, but that's not going to be like, well, that Kayleen Schaefer. No, her book is amazing. And if there's a way to get more friendship out there, then let's do what we can do. And I think that's really where we have to start thinking about what we can do to help others.
Yeah.
We might not be able to do a lot, but maybe one phone call to a club owner, or maybe one retweet, or one, hey, I know you're going up for promotion. How did that go? Mm-hmm. How far that can go when women are supporting women, especially when there's such a negative stigma that women are always tearing each other down. And for the women who do that, I just say, well, but why?
Yeah. Oh, but why?
But why? Why, Blair and Serena?
Right.
Sorry, Gossip Girl.
And I guess before I rip someone or a persona to shreds, I have done that.
Oh,
I mean,
sure
I think growing up, you feel your status is how many friends you have, or
how many followers you have now.
Followers and all sorts of, who's popular and who's not. And I think there's been many times in my early 20s, if I would have went up with competing with someone for the same job, the outcome would not
been the same.
Yeah. So I think it just is with a level of maturity. But boy, if we could teach the younger that it's not about, it's not about you.
It's about all of us together.
Yeah,
and that might sound cheesy, but it's like
it's true.
I think collaboration and helping each other out is important. I don't think it's just about teaching young girls. I think it's also about like boys viewing girls' relationships as important, or just relationships in general as important. Like, that guy stole my photo. I mean, I know it's on the internet, and then changed it into a meme with like a really negative message without even realizing or thinking about that that's not what my goal is. Like, if my goal was to be like, relationships are trashy, let's talk about trashy relationships, and I'd be like, oh, that's hilarious. But I don't think friendships are trashy. They go through difficulties, but
and I think there's a level of, with that situation being like, there's people associated with that, and like you did a great job of being like, hey, this is out there just to let you all know.
Yeah, I messaged all of them.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, really? Okay. Where is it at? But, and I think you asked us, like, do you want me to do anything about it? And I felt it was important that, you did everything you could.
Yeah.
And that's just another example of how, like you said, we have to overcome it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, some of the situations, it's going to be a 2-step back before we can move forward.
Yeah.
But teaching young boys that, or, young people or people in general, that it's that whole idea of what is really a feminist,
Yeah.
And it's not burning bras. It's not,
they never burn bras,
They didn't.
people.
They didn't.
Look up a source.
Right. But, by the way, you truly have to wear a bra to understand why you would want to desperately get rid of it.
Especially with those under the wire, what have yous.
Yeah, it's nothing pretty. So, but yeah.
Bra talk.
Yeah. But I love that there are males out there who are saying, no, I'm standing up for my mom or my sister or my best friend or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And that's what this is about. I think there's a level with this story of standing up for, one, what is right, I think. And I think Marilyn was like, no, I'm sorry. Did you hear her voice? I can see her being like,
it's not like she has a shitty voice. It's Ella Fitzgerald.
Right.
Jesus.
And no, they don't want her up there because she's
overweight and black. Oh dear Lord.
Right. Sold out.
God.
It sounds like a month.
Yeah.
Like, come on,
Yeah.
But
people loved her. She has a beautiful voice, and they're like, why keep her down?
That's it. Because who was it hurting? At that time. But
either don't go to her show,
right?
Don't listen.
Yeah, but we can say that now. I mean, in the 50s,
maybe. Yeah, you're like, Alysa, let's take you back to the maybe if we go to the beginning, we were talking about Back to the Future. If we go to 1955 with the character,
well, you and I probably would have been like, yeah, sister, woohoo, like sing it. I know I would have been in the civil rights movement. I know it.
What do you mean?
Like I would have been marching.
Oh,
I would have been all over it. But
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Anyways, but what is right and being supportive, I felt like were the two things out of this, and it was women. There was the race issue there, and I just felt like Marilyn really just didn't even think about that. Yeah. It was just like,
she's ahead of her time.
Yeah. And I love the quote of Ella too, being like, I'm very, kind of in debt to her for allowing or, doing what she did.
Yeah. I never had to play a small jazz club again.
Yeah. So that is, and think of her story. I mean, like you said earlier, talent shows and all of these things. And she was just not recognized for barriers were just put up every which way. And I think Marilyn was like, let me pave that way because I can. And it goes back to your point. I can't always listen to every podcast. And I would be the first one to say, I don't.
Yeah.
But I told my doctor today, you know what I mean? Like, this is the 2 podcasts that she does. And I really like this one. And,
and see, that's a support that I don't expect all my friends to listen to everything, although I kind of like, oh, you didn't listen. It's more me being snarky. But I don't expect that. But I also support everything that my friends do, knowing what they want to do and wanting to see them succeed. And I think the real difference is whether or not you think that everyone can succeed together, or if you have to fail for other people to succeed. You do not have to fail for other people to succeed. And I think that, my last episode was about being friendly versus being a friend. Yeah. And I think that when you're a friend, you should always support them the best that you can.
Right.
If you're being friendly, which might have been more the scenario here, that she had the means, she did what was right. Yeah. She had the power to do so. And so she did it. And so if there's a way that you can help someone else, then why wouldn't you? Then why wouldn't you?
Yeah, pay it forward. Pay it
forward.
Yeah, that's... I just, there's so many ways, and it's not, and that's where I just keep going back. It's not about you. You know? How can you make someone's day? As cliche and corny as that is.
How can I make someone's day so that I look better and feel better?
But, it's like, you don't
That's just an added benefit. But like, how can you make someone else's day? Yeah. Like, Crystal came over. We're having the polar vortex 2019 where I haven't been into work all week because of the snow and because it's like negative 40 degrees, wind chilled and whatnot. Yeah. And she came in bringing me not coffee.
No,
I had latte. Yeah, she brought me a tea latte, and it's delicious. And I was it's really good. Okay. And like, she didn't have to do that, but it was like an added bonus. Yeah. So thank you.
Right. See, that's what it's about. Thinking about other people. About. Hey, here's a thought. I was thinking of. I was listening to you, not thinking, but
so much for supporting me. Whatever.
I'm giving you a compliment over there.
Oh, no. Excuse me.
But let's play the game of if Marilyn did not pass away early.
Yeah.
Like, do you think they would be like BFFs?
I think they would have been, if they weren't BFFs, I think they would have been strong alliance. That would have made a huge difference for the industry, for women and race relations.
I think so.
And I don't think I'm over speaking at all. I think there's something about if Marilyn could have just lived longer to figure out and embrace maybe a little bit more of who she was and have more control over herself than maybe other people had on her because of the amount of pay they gave her or that she was typecast and things like that, that she would have been even more influential. And thinking that they both would have been alive during the civil rights and the feminist movement. And if you know anything about the feminist movement, liberal feminism typically focuses on white feminism. And I think that there could have been more strides made with intersectional feminism and talking about the importance of women of color. Had they been friends and more pictures taken and more support of each other. And like thinking of the difference in time. Like if they were friends now, tweeting at each other.
Oh, yeah.
Just showing up at, Bradley Cooper just showed up at Lady Gaga's show in Vegas. I'm like, Marilyn Monroe just pop in. Happy birthday, Ella Fitzgerald.
Right?
Maybe not with my sexy Phoebe voice, but I think that we could, and maybe it wouldn't have happened, but I think it's nice to think about that something did happen and what could have happened if they had remained friends longer. And, one of the things that I read is that Joe DiMaggio, Marilyn Monroe's second husband, put together her funeral and her celebrity friends were invited. So Ella didn't get to say goodbye.
Yeah.
So
that's sad.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But what do you think?
Oh, I guess my mind went to the entertainment that they both could have done.
Oh, together?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
I mean, maybe some sort of, album or movie or something.
Some sort of getting into the, a show of some sort.
Yeah. And just how awesome.
Maybe Ella Fitzgerald would have been on the soundtrack of one of Marilyn's movies, or that Marilyn could have had a little something on her album.
Right.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. I'm they're gonna change the world.
Yeah, and I'm like, what movie will they make?
But I think we can change the world through music and movies.
Oh, sure.
I mean, they're so powerful. So
well, the imagery alone of them two, again, pictures of them together
would have been huge.
Yeah, and I think the other thing was about the talent that both sides kind of the house.
Yeah.
Marilyn had, Frank Sinatra showed up and, Ella performed with Frank Sinatra and things like that. But I think there would have been more of that
cross collaboration. She would have they would have both met more people.
I think so.
And that might have helped. And maybe it could have built into a friendship where they could give each other advice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe Ella Fitzgerald would have something to say about Marilyn taking on a different role or being herself, or that they could bond over performance anxiety and give each other my gosh.
I mean, it could have been great.
And maybe it was, and no one recorded it because people don't care about friendship.
Or there's I always think about this, there's some locked box of letters that they wrote. Do you know what I mean? Wouldn't that be great?
Pen pals.
Oh, if we could have that documentation.
Who's got Ella and Marilyn's pen pal letters?
Yeah,
please email me at bestforeverspod@gmail.com. See, this might not have been as detailed of a story as Marie Antoinette and her friends, but I think that this something happened friendship is really important to think about, to know about, and maybe even wish a little bit more about, And so we're going to have to do this more.
I know, we'll have to dig more.
Let's find out who else is friends. I want to get into it and be like, oh, so there's only one article on this friendship? What do you think? How do you think they would have been friends?
Well, and maybe we'd have to do a mini one once you read Marilyn's book, because maybe there's something else,
too. There's maybe more.
Yeah, and to see, but definitely cool that they had some sort of something happened.
Yeah,
moment.
And if there are any historians listening, I mean, we gave our, little.
Don't break my heart.
Well,
I love history. I'm talking to the historians that might comment. Please, I love history.
She does, but I also think that it's important that we think about friendship when we think about the life of someone.
I think so too.
And maybe they're well, maybe you haven't read biographies in the last 15 years and that's really changed. Well, then send me those stories because I want to know them. I want to share them. I want to, Oh, okay.
Cool.
Well, if you have any historical friendships you'd like me and Crystal to detail on Best Forevers, feel free to email me at bestforeverspod@gmail.com or to hit me up on social media. So until next time, friends, think about empowering your friends, because without our friends, who would we be? Thanks for listening to Best Forevers. If you like what you hear, be sure to subscribe, rate, review, and of course, share with a friend. Please be sure to follow Best Forevers on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Best Forevers Pod, and I'm at Dr. Alysa Lucas on Twitter. You can always find the podcast webpage for more information at bestforeverspod.com, and share your stories of friendship by emailing me at bestforeverspod@gmail.com. And if you'd like to support the movement to love on our friends more, check out the podcast on patreon.com/bestforeverspod. Now, friends, check out this recommended podcast that you must get in your ear holes immediately.
Even though we live abroad, as women of Indian origin, we have a common thread that binds us together because of our strong cultural background. NRI Women is a platform for women to share their stories and experiences on various topics. Our podcast is about inspiring NRI women and their amazing stories.
Some of the stories we've covered include growing up in a joint family in India, adopting a child as a single woman, and rebuilding one's life after the loss of a child. Take a listen. We hope you'll be inspired or learn something new. I'm Bettina.
And I'm Lenora, and we're the voices behind NRI Women Podcast. We're all heart.
Just look for NRI Woman wherever you get your podcasts or find us at nriwoman.com. New episodes come out every Monday. Make sure you subscribe.